Two things here today. First of all, raising the Armed Forces flag, which is a very significant event because it marks the start of Armed Forces Week, which is a national celebration of the Armed Forces. And secondly, and most interestingly, we've been signing the Community Covenant, which is an agreement between the armed forces and the community, in this case the Isle of Wight, to not disadvantage servicemen and ex-servicemen when they come and live in our community. You know, the armed forces have, in the last 10 or 15 years, got a really high profile in our society because they've been putting their lives on the line in Afghanistan and elsewhere on our behalf. And I think it's only right and proper that we should recognise and acknowledge that. Of course, we have lost a lot of people in Afghanistan and elsewhere, and we need to honour their memory. But of course, there are a lot of wounded ex-servicemen and servicemen leaving the armed forces all the time, and we have to look after them as well.
The Community Covenant brings together a whole, if you like, number of organisations to support our community of forces families. Now, the forces families sometimes leave a district and then return after a length of service, and they need that support when they arrive back in their hometown or home environment. It's very important to support people through the change, especially when they leave the armed forces and come back into civilian life. The Isle of Wight Council can help by making sure that no forces family or former member of the forces is disadvantaged by being absent from their hometown or from the Isle of Wight. It's very important, as I say, to come back and pick up their, if you like, home environment, their home contacts, and make sure that even down to the NHS and the dentistry, the housing situation is recognised, and we can assist them through the Covenant, through those members of the Covenant, to put forward some support mechanisms so they're not found wanting.
As you know, it's Flag Raising Day, which is a celebration really of the armed forces. Generally it starts off Armed Forces Week. So that was the main point of this morning. And the other element which we did was to sign the Community Covenant. Now, the Community Covenant is a bond between the civilian community and the military community, and you'll be surprised how many military or ex-military veterans there are in a given community. And the covenant is effectively a promise that military personnel, veterans, retirees will not be disadvantaged because of their military service. And some people think, well, what disadvantage? Well, I can just give you a classic now. You know, a soldier goes away, does his career of 22 years, comes home, applies to go on the housing list, and for him, that's his first day. You know, the fact that he's been living in, let's say, public accommodation for the last 22 years counts for nothing. So, you know, one aspect of the covenant would be he'd actually be credited with 22 years worth of points, if you like. Things like that, and you know, getting children into school. Sometimes, you know, children are disadvantaged because they're not here at the start of the year, and so on and so forth. They can't get into the school they want, and you know, it all depends really on individual circumstances, and that's what's special about the community covenant. It appertains to the community you're in, because communities are different. I mean, if you go to garrison towns, of course, they're well up to speed with this sort of thing, and they understand. But in communities like the Isle of Wight, although, like I say, we have lots of veterans, generally people, it's all a bit of a mystery to them about what the forces do. So that's the idea of it. I did 30 years in the Army, in the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, and you look back and you think, actually, I had a wonderful time. I travelled many places in the world. I spent quite a lot of years in Germany, you know, when we were guarding against the Warsaw Pact forces invading Europe. But I also did loan service tour in Kenya with the paramilitary arm of the Kenya police. I did 2 years in Cyprus with the RAF. I commanded ground workshop there, which was quite a coup for a soldier to command something on an RAF base. And I also spent 2 years in Canada. And not many people know, but we have a huge training area there in Alberta. It's the only place where the British Army Armoured Forces can go and fire and manoeuvre at the same time. So I was there basically in charge of 3,000 pieces of equipment, from the commander's staff car, main battle tanks, helicopters, all that sort of stuff. And that was the best job I ever had. That was absolutely brilliant. And then after that I became the equipment manager for the tank fleet, and then retired and came home. There are more soldiers, or no, let's say servicemen in the forces per head coming from the Isle of Wight, but basically, considering our community is so small, but we have a high percentage of youngsters, soldiers in the Army and Air Force and what have you. Let me tell you, when I was telling you I was in Canada, I was out on the prairie, a huge exercise going on, and I went to this armoured vehicle, and the soldier said to me, "Sir," he said, "I believe you come from the Isle of Wight." I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Oh, well, I come from Ryde, and Charlie over there, comes from Shanklin." And I had a red funnel sticker on my car. That's how they detected me. It's difficult to say really, but hopefully we can join together. The Isle of Wight, although it doesn't have a garrison as such, I think it's probably more military aware than other communities are. Yeah, and you might think that's strange, but maybe because we've only got Portsmouth across the water and things like that, and we have TA units and cadet units, all in what is a comparatively small space. So I think there is an awareness on the Isle of Wight about the military that probably is not as strong in other places.